Welcome to the synthesis series of instructionals associated with the digital skills stream of architectural communications at UQ. In these next instructionals, we will work through the preparation of a short standalone report for an architectural project. We will focus a little on developing some compositional strategies before launching into some basic instruction explaining how to set up a simple two-page spread using Adobe InDesign. Prior to any presentation, be it a linear narrative like this PowerPoint video, or a report, or a large panel presentation, it is important to develop a strategy for the composition and method of production. It is always good to get some kind of context to the project being presented, as well as the context of the communication. The same project may be presented to a public committee one day and experienced builders the next. Though the project is the same in this instance, the method and detail of the communication in this scenario would be quite different. Looking back to the lecture representing the world, we discussed briefly some of the main considerations when preparing a report style presentation. Number one is developing a common and consistent style for the report. Ideally, the presentation you prepare as part of this report could form the basis of future reports. Establishing a workable style and template can save you a lot of work in the future and save you from reinventing the wheel for every new presentation you make. In a corporate environment, the style of a report would be heavily regulated to fit with the corporate identity. Other considerations include the fonts that you use and specifically the number and style of fonts. My own rule of thumb is that 2 different fonts in one report or presentation is the maximum variation. Consider as well whether to use a serif or a sans serif font. Serif fonts are those with little tails that help the reading of the text flow, but it can look a little bit untidy and perhaps old-fashioned. Finally, make sure that you manage your source material carefully, as you will see when we start to use InDesign. Looking at the email for the task associated with this workshop, the hypothetical letter provided by your employer sets both the context of the task and a little bit about the project itself. If we look at the detail of the note, we can glean some important points. First up is that this is the second run at the project. The hidden question is why the project did not move forward in the first place, and will the unknown problem also stop it again? There is nothing in the letter that gives us any clues to the answer, and if there was an opportunity to ask questions from the employer, asking why the project stopped the first time could help avoid any pitfalls in the project pitch in the future. The second aspect is that there is a lot at stake here for us, as it would be an ideal starter project, so going the extra mile in this hypothetical case is in our longer term interest. The fact that the Centre Director and Board are new means that we cannot take for granted the common understanding developed in the conversations with the previous board. In some sense, it is good to get a new person to work on the project with a fresh set of eyes, as the questions they ask are the same that the new board may also ask. We can see the report has to be short and concise, condensed onto 2 pages only. We also cannot rely on the board to understand orthographic drawings, so perhaps diagrams and 3-dimensional views would work better in this instance. Finally, we have a very wide range of developed drawings available to use for our presentation. These drawings would no doubt be well resolved and neat. Perhaps the finality may encourage or discourage the board. It's difficult to tell. In any case, it is great to have a wide range of source material available. However, we may try and make the drawings read a little bit more graphic and less technical to avoid a sense of finality to the project. Rather, it could be a project that offers a new beginning. Getting a good understanding of the nature and breadth of the source material is an important starting point. Also, avoid the temptation to use as much of the material as you can. On the contrary, try and be very selective and sparing with your choices. As a very simple strategy for the flow of presentation, we can perhaps work with the strategy of starting with the big ideas and then moving through to the detail. This could be extended to the type of drawings that represent this sequence. Working with diagrams and three-dimensional representations before moving to more technical drawings could be a sound way of moving forward. With the broad strategy in place, the task now is to work with the geometry of the sheet and the geometry of the drawings to try and come up with a feasible, refined composition template to start the digital document. For the first page, we can develop the flow of ideas from an opening word and diagrams through to a vision of the project. A simple division of the page can give us a reasonably balanced composition of shapes and regions before we place any text or images into a document. The flow of information could then work to move to large drawings, say a plan, that could give us a good overview of the arrangement of the building, with complementary sections and external views to provide an impression of the space and the face of the building. Though many non-designers have difficulty interpreting elevations and sections, most will cope reasonably well with a plan. Closing with a final word to sum up the project and to perhaps add some key data such as the total area and the names of the main rooms may also be useful information for a client committee. Looking at the composition as blocks or regions of text and drawings allows us to see the composition in its simplest form. In some senses, it is the same way we often read the front page of a newspaper, where the main story comes out in the basic overall composition. Though coming up with a compositional idea may be a challenge, don't necessarily stick to just your first idea. In this instance, it may work equally well with the first pages flipped, so the lead is the large emotional image or money shot. With either scenario, the thing to consider with this example is that the composition is symmetrical around the center of the page. Given that this will be a 2-page A3 document, if it were printed and folded, it would also work as a 4-page A4 document. Also, if the client or a member of the client committee did not have an A3 printer, then they could print the document as a tile document on A4 page without any of the images or text being clipped or cropped. We will leave it there for now. The next instructionals will be a live demonstration of InDesign. We will assume that after this instructional you will develop some ideas of your own before launching into InDesign, so that you have some direction with the composition before working with the software. Thanks again for listening.